Today we are going to be presenting our slideshow documentary about the Berlin blockade and airlift, the first Cold War crisis by Beder, Malik and I. We will begin by talking about the introduction, moving on to how the blockade began and how it was Stalin's gamble. We will then speak about the airlift plan, which is a risky operation. Building on the airlift plan, we will speak about the life in Berlin and how they survived the blockade. Furthermore, we will elaborate on how Stalin was defeated and how the blockade ended. And lastly, we will talk about how the Cold War tensions rose. The year is 1948. World War II is over, but a new conflict is rising, the Cold War. The world is divided between the United States and the Soviet Union. At the center of this tension lies Berlin, a city split into East and West. When Stalin tries to take control, the Western Allies must act fast. This is the story of the Berlin blockade and airlift, the first major crisis of the Cold War. In June 1948, Soviet leader Joseph Stalin made a bold move. He ordered a blockade of West Berlin, cutting off all railways, roads, and canals. His goal? To force the Allies out and take full control of the city. But there was a problem. Over 2 million Berliners now had no access to food, fuel, or medicine.
The Allies had three choices: fight back, abandon Berlin, or find another way. President Truman refused to surrender. Instead, he launched Operation Viros, a massive airlift to keep Berlin alive. Over the next 11 months, cargo planes delivered everything from food to fuel, making history as the largest humanitarian airlift ever.
For Berliners, daily life was a struggle. Electricity was limited, food was rationed, and the fear of Soviet takeover loomed. But the airlift brought hope. American pilots, known as the candy bombers, even dropped chocolates tied to tiny parachutes for children waiting below. Despite the hardships, Berlin stood strong. Despite the Soviet pressure, the airlift was an undeniable success. Over 200,000 flights delivered more than 2 million tons of supplies. Stalin had no choice but to admit defeat. On May 12, 1949, the blockade was lifted. Berlin was saved, and the world had witnessed the first major victory of the Cold War.
The Berlin airlift was a victory for the West, but it deepened Cold War tensions. The world was now divided into two opposing sides, democracy and communism. In response to Soviet aggression, NATO formed in 1949, solidifying Western unity against USSR. Berlin would remain a flashing point for decades to come, eventually leading to construction of the Berlin Wall in 1961.
The Berlin airlift was not just about supplies. It was about sending a message. The West would not back down, and democracy would not be intimidated. It was a battle not fought with weapons, but with hope. A battle where the fate of a city rested on the wings of its rescuers. But this was just the beginning of the Cold War.